Broadcasting live, this is the Handicappers Report, brought to you by the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany, and CapitalOTBBet.com, the premier online wagering site in New York State. CapitalOTBBet.com. Sign up today.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Handicappers Report alongside Seth Merrow. I am Anthony Mormino as we turn the calendar. October 1st. Must be autumn in the air. I certainly felt it. Last couple of high school football games I've gone to, rather chilly at night. Last night, not nearly as chilly as the week before, but...
I played some old man basketball at the Y yesterday, and when I drove by the bank, and they play in the morning. Morning is not my, but when you're the old guy, you got to pick where your spots. So it's about 6:30 in the morning. I drove by the bank, 36 degrees. I did not like to see that.
Ooh, that's rough for September, I guess we could say yesterday. But a big day of racing. Obviously, we're counting down. Keeneland opening soon. Yesterday at Santa Anita in Southern California, they opened up for their fall meet, which you can understand is front-loaded with stakes action today and tomorrow. Frank Miramati calling action there. We'll see him at Saratoga in the summertime. But at Saratoga, what was that? Winter Sun stood up. It's My House paid $70-something at Santa Anita yesterday. We'll see if that stands up for the meet. And how about this? The jackpot was hit yesterday at Santa Anita.
Oh, that is interesting.
$70K
on day one.
Bingo.
But I'm glad you brought that up because today's a mandatory at Gulfstream, so people should keep that in mind.
Okay, you get the mandatory payout at Gulfstream. And just backtracking, Seth, Tuskegee Airmen in the opener on Pennsylvania Derby Day. The horse that had... was not a morning line choice, but had the bullet workout in the first recorded workout, something I could never remember seeing. Well, the folks bet it down to 5-2 and scored on debut, as it were, for John Service and others. Great day racing last weekend there. We're going to have Churchill Downs, and as they're wrapping up their September meet. I was actually shocked that they were talking. I saw somewhere on Twitter about having turf racing in November. I don't think we need to go there. Just maybe let sleeping dogs lie after Arlington Million Day and see if maybe we can get it back in the spring.
We'll see. I mean, they are talking about it. Speaking of turf racing, too, this is kind of fun. I mentioned it on Racing Across America a couple of weeks ago, and the news kind of came out, but it seems like it's progressing because they put in whatever paperwork was necessary to put in. There may be racing in Massachusetts next summer, and it sounds kind of intriguing. Again, they still have things that have to be finalized, but it
like
seems,
a facility.
Well, and it seems like it's progressing, but it is an interesting and kind of clever idea. They're only doing 2 days of racing this coming year. That's what they applied for, dates. But they'll put it right in between Saratoga and Belmont, or Belmont and Aqueduct. So I thought it was kind of a clever position where they would, I would think, get some New York horsemen to, and they're talking about a location between Springfield and Worcester. So it'd be about a couple hours from Albany. So you would think a lot of folks, like I say, New York-based horsemen may take it. Oh, and I mentioned it because you mentioned turf racing. It'll be an all-turf kind of Kentucky Downs-ish kind of thing.
But they weren't. It didn't seem like they were talking about a Kentucky Downs type of plant. They were talking about, like, Kentucky Downs doesn't have barns. You got to ship in and ship out, right? But they're talking about having barn. I go, you got a shovel in the ground?
It's some kind of horse facility, equine facility. Well, they'll have layups, and maybe they'll have some breeding there or whatnot. But I would think maybe next year, maybe that's it. I don't know. It'll be a whole situation. I mean, I think next year.
And I think they said September 9th and 10th, and they're going to run for like $700K both days.
$750 they're looking at on each day, with at least one stakes race on eeach of the 2 days. But again,
very interesting.
We will see, but it's interesting. And they are progressing, and clearly they want to do it.
Yeah. What was funny was because I've been trying to follow, because I said when it closed down, that was a whole region. We've had Arlington, Hollywood Park, but when Suffolk closed, that was an entire region of the country that had a rich history of thoroughbred racing deciding to close it. But I don't know what I was thinking, but I always thought it was going to be at Suffolk Downs. Then I realized, I guess they're knocking Suffolk Downs down. But I always thought, well, they're trying to get 2 days to run at Suffolk because they have a turf course. And they have a dirt course, obviously, but that's not the case. So, but it's September 9th and 10th of, the next September 9th and 10th. So it would be interesting. And it would be a fun thing. I know one thing. I would, if the calendar allowed for it, I would go. I think it would be. I would too. I think it'd be very, very fun. A couple hours
from Albany. And,
yeah.
And I always, I've talked about, going up to Maine and going to Scarborough Downs on the harness side of things. I'd be interested to hear if anybody remembers. It was before my time, but they used to race thoroughbreds at Scarborough Downs back in the day. Like I said, it was before my time, so we're going back a ways.
Was that the last thoroughbred racing in Maine? I'm not, or is
I would guess. That's the only.
So there hasn't been thoroughbred racing in Maine for 67.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. I knew New England always liked standard breds. I just didn't realize they had them.
Maine has that whole harness fair circuit in the fall. It's a lot of fun, and I know the Brooklyn Cowboy is a regular kind of.
Boy, some of the places he finds.
Some of those fairs up there in Maine.
He is. How's this? So I'm trying to complete the all baseball stadium. So I had an opportunity on Thursday to go to. Well, now they call it Oracle, but it was Pac Bell when they built, but the San Francisco Giants. So I'm waiting at Willie Mays Gate to go in. Woman comes up to me, nice woman, like a customer service person. She just starts talking to me, and we're now talking about Pleasanton Fair and Fresno. She's a horse track degenerate. She's like, you really got to go. I said, I'm planning on going. I like fairs. I like the out-of-the-way places, but I'm trying to knock off the baseball stadium, because she said, like, what do you? I said, I had this day free, and this has been on the list, and I wanted to come, and she goes, well, you should go see the fairs. I go, and I'm thinking to myself, I've told this story before, and recently about the guy down in Philadelphia. I'm really thinking, this lady's made me. I'm now like, why are you talking about horse racing at Willie Mays Gate? And not only that, not only horse racing, not like, oh, Santa Anita's opening tomorrow. She's like, the California Fair Circuit, and Fresno's going to open in a couple days. I'm like, yes. I said, I remember, ma'am, a couple years ago when Pleasanton was the only dirt surface in California. So, but that was my experience the other day. I loved it. But the Cowboy, he finds some places. I'm not so sure if you brought a $50 bill, they could make change for you at the betting window. Did you see the one he posted the other day? It looked like the walking ring was my backyard. I was like, is this legit? But he finds some places I can't imagine. But
he was at Shawan, what, right?
Yeah. The horses, they look like my yard. And remember, tomorrow is ARC Day. Capitol will have it for you. I guess we're opening up early.
Yeah, 9:30 open tomorrow. The ARC goes off at about 10:05. We'll show it live. I'll have it during Racing Across America. But there'll be some breakfast here if you'd like to swing by. But also, Mike Callahan tells me, and you may be familiar, I think it's what the Vikings and the Saints are playing over in Europe tomorrow. So the folks can come
going on.
Watch the football game and watch the ARC. And then there's some nice steak section after the ARC as well. That's always a great international card. So again, we open here at the Clubhouse Racebook tomorrow at 9:30. And tonight we're going to stay open a little bit later to be open for the entire Santa Anita card as well. So if you come tonight, you can stick around for a little SoCal racing right through the evening.
And one final thing I want to say, because it was, for me, so singular. I've talked about the spreadsheets I keep and the stallions and all this, that, the other thing. And I've kept for many years, many different tracks. And something happened that never has happened before. And when I say this, I'm talking about, I have probably 600,000 races. I'm just a raw number that I'm throwing, but it's pretty close. My point is, I had never had a stallion win 3 races in a row, including on days when it's like a breeder's day, where you got like Freud winning 3 in a row, or Not This Love down in Maryland. I had Wild again win 3 out of 4 at Saratoga, who I think Medaglia d'Oro ended up doing it a couple of years ago. That's the closest. And then the other day, this is just Gunrunner, won 3 stakes races in a row in a stallion in open company. I can't imagine the next time I'm going to see anything like that. But I had never and I'll tell you what, Seth, when I would have 2 in a row, I was keenly aware of when I went to the next race, and it was always no, 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 until Gun Runner the other day had 3 open company consecutive stakes winners at Churchill Downs, and you had Ron Winchell on over the summertime, and we were just talking off camera, and he was great, and I just can't imagine. But Gun Runner, who has set the bar in a place that I've never seen before.
Yeah, insane what he's doing as a sire now.
And it seems as if the longer the better, and we haven't gotten there yet on average for his runners. Just truly remarkable that after all these years, finally I get a stallion win 3 races in a row. And it's not like a maiden race, a claiming race, and a allowance race. This guy sires 3 stakes company, an open stakes company at that. Just truly unbelievable. I can't imagine what they're going to set the stallion fee for him for the coming breeding season. Pick a number. Yeah. They're going to be lined up.
Yeah, like I say, it's insane what he's done as a sire.
I've never seen it before, and when I say never, I have a lot of data on that. But
and just one other thing, when you mentioned Miramati out of Southern California, Chris Griffin was announced as the
takes his place at Monmouth.
Yeah, he's going to fill in he's going to move in permanently at Monmouth. Miramati, that was announced up at Saratoga. Miramati will be the Saratoga announcer. John Embriel will do Belmont. Chris Griffin's going to do Aqueduct, but then the rest of the year he's going to be over.
And Chris was here last year, and I think he's very good, let's say.
Clearly an up-and-comer.
Yeah.
And so
I've seen his picture, I'm guessing 32-ish. I mean, he's young. When you're almost 60, he looks young, but I think he's outstanding. I think he'll be terrific in the winter, again in New York.
So that's the situation, and now we'll see who winds up at Parks.
You have to figure that's the 3rd best summer job, right? Saratoga, Del Mar, and Monmouth.
Del Mar, and Monmouth, yeah, probably, sure.
Yeah.
3
days a week, the Jersey Shore, 4 days off. You'd kind of like that schedule.
I would love that schedule, absolutely.
All right, we ready for Aqueduct?
It'd be 7 days a week, Jersey Shore. It'd be technically Jersey Shore 3 days, and then real Jersey Shore the other.
Oh, I got you. Very good. Yeah. Very clever. Ready for Aqueduct?
Absolutely.
Because I'm not calling it that other thing.
All right, the opener at Belmont at the Big A is State Bred Maiden Specials going 6.
And I was thinking that it's got to be this week and next week. Got to really wrap up all the stakes action. I mean, next weekend at
the major stakes,
yeah, for the big things. Yeah. I think it's a intriguing race here because number 3, Miss Fashionista, a first-time starter for Todd Pletcher, is 5-2 on the morning line, and I thought a couple of horses who have run already looked in a good spot. So I'll be intrigued to see what they bet Miss Fashionista, the Rapoli, Pletcher, Bernardini, Irad horse, into the teeth of me is 1-2-4, and Pretty Miss Keynes for George Weaver. George Weaver has continued his good streak since Saratoga. This is the type of debut. We're going to get the worst of it, and the price, we got nearly 20-1 on debut, raced very well before fatiguing and getting beat half a dozen, finishing 4th. We do draw the inside, but on debut, the offspring of Shackelford was sharp enough for me to take her in the second start. So number 1, Pretty Miss Keynes, my top pick. For second, the other firster, Linda Rice sends out the offspring of Into Mischief. Number 2, Downtown Mischief. This is Lady Sheila Stables, so we'll see the hot pink silks out there. And for third, I have number 4, Bantera, for Steve Asmussen, who was beaten favorite twice. On debut, ran better than regressed, both at Saratoga. Now the offspring of Practical Joke makes the 3rd career start. But, the 2 firsters, Pletcher and Vax from Mike Maker, short prices. I thought that the horses who had experience were sharp. So I'm 1-2-4, leaving the firsters out.
In the second at Belmont, we are looking at Maiden Special 2-year-old fillies going 1 1/16 on the grass.
7, 5, 6. This will be on the inner turf course where the rails are at 9 feet and number 756. I said, Chad Brown says out the 7 with Flavian Prat, who, Seth, this might be my favorite one of all time. How good is this? On debut, I don't think this is the right thing to do. This is the non-event at Saratoga, the no contest one. Why are they putting stats up for that race? Beaten 91 lengths. It was called a no contest. So why are they putting up data? You know, they put up declared no contest. I think that's because if you remember the race, a couple horses continued trying, and a handful or more didn't try. So really, I think it should be all hyphens in this spot.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Okay. I mean, to me, if it's a no contest.
Because it says no contest, so then you can take the information and decide. I mean, you obviously look at this, you know that 91, this guy just stopped.
Yes. Well, it went from 18
but
to
also,
68.
also the ones on the front, that's not legitimate for that. So I could go either way.
Yeah,
suppose.
I just think that an outsider would say, well, if it's no contest, why is there information? Like in a baseball game, if you hit 4 home runs and they declared it a no contest afterwards, I don't know. But I think, because I think there are other horses in there, Seth, whose data will be less obvious to disaster. And they'd be like, hey.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The
like
1, 2, 3 horses, people might look and not
understand what was going on.
Because you don't, if you haven't seen, you're not familiar, you don't know, well, half of the field pulled
Didn't
up.
try. Just stopped trying. So that's bad. So the second star, to me, which is where you're going on, 8-1 finishing third, beating a length, you know, that's where we're going forward with this offspring of Kitten's Joy. For second, a second-time starter, truly legitimate, number 5, Justifiable Bell. On debut, 13-1. Hit the board under Luis Saez, gets Javier Castellano. This is an offspring of Justify. Now, obviously, Justify is not hitting the ceiling of Gunrunner, which very few will ever do, but Justify is off to an outstanding first crop. I mean, just outstanding. And for third, number 6, Ken McPeak's runner makes the third career start, all on turf. I think a very intriguing early double, 7, 5, 6 in here. And I think now what's funny is in this race, a couple of the firsters intrigue me, but they're also 8 or 9, 10-1, which is why they intrigue me versus the 5-2 in the opener.
Race number 3, a plain vanilla claimer down at the $10,000 level. 7 furlongs is the trip.
Two things we don't get very often anymore, which is vanilla claimers, and races at 7/8 on the dirt are very, very infrequently found. And I always liked it because I thought it was the truer distance of the sprinters, because you could kind of make a mistake and still have time to recover, and we just don't run very many any longer. I'm all inside here, 1, 2, 3, and Jeffrey Engelhardt. And we talked about Jeffrey Engelhardt. And by the way, you know, the 2 trainers that I was very intrigued to look at in the autumn was Rudy and Orlando Noda. And Orlando Noda somehow got through the bomb the other day. So that train is running. But it's just the idea that these guys are Sharpies. And when they have a 2 for 80 streak, as Rudy had, they didn't forget how to do their job. So you just wait for it. But Jeffrey Engelhardt was dynamite in the spring at Aqueduct and had a quiet summer. Owns this horse, Dylan Davis, gets the mount out of a Finger Lakes 2-turn race, now shortens up to 1 turn, has hit the board in 7 of 11 at Aqueduct. I'm going with Roundabout, my top pick here. For a second, Lost in Rome. Gus Rodriguez sends out this runner. Haven't seen this horse since Labor Day, a couple of days, September 1st, when running against 20s. Now gets a much softer spot. And for third, number 3, Our Philly Special. 1 start since July. Big, that was down at Colonial. Gets a softer spot in here. Jose Ortiz, who rode this horse at Colonial, takes them out 1, 2, 3 in the third.
Fourth race this afternoon is an optional claimer with a non-winners of 2 other than condition, the 1-turn mile.
245 for me, ladies and gentlemen, and Bees and Honey for Shug McGahee sends out this runner, and these are the Chiefs Crown Silks, ladies and gentlemen. Andrew Roser taking it over from his father, and Gainesway had a good race at Saratoga, going the 2-turn 9 furlong distance. Now it's going to shorten up to 1 turn. I think should be able to sit moderately off the early pace and then maybe get a run on the outside. Ran second to an easy winner on the first. For second, number 1, Brattle House, who's even money. Yesterday or day before, we had 3 odds on favorites lose. I think this horse is going to be odds on, is even money. 1 start since June. That was beaten at 4-5 at Saratoga, going 7/8 to Betsy Blue. Well, there you have it.
I left my ringer on.
Is your Grubhub outside the door here? Hope you got enough for 2. And then for third, number 5, Vegas Weekend. Linda Rice sends out this runner. Hasn't run since February, but I've told you folks, layoffs, that stuff, I'm not interested. I don't compute it any longer. It's not just 1 or 2 trainers that can do it. So 2, 4, 5 in the fourth.
Race number 5, top of the page, I have written in capital letters, Nice Bunch. And I think that this is one of those 2-year-old races where some horses could come out of here and prove very talented moving forward, particularly maybe number 4, the sibling to Yaupan. But it's a maiden special weight event, 6.5 furlongs.
And that's where I've gone. I'm 4 to 8. The offspring of Good Magic, who is going to get just lost in the wake of Gunrunner and Justify. But don't sleep on Good Magic, ladies and gentlemen. Costs nearly $600,000. Goes out for Joe Allen, so those will be the familiar green and white blocks. Dylan Davis gets to mount. I was thinking that perhaps this would be the one that wouldn't get pounded at the window, thinking that the 2 and the 3 and the 8 would, and maybe even the 6 for a first-time starter. For second, I have first or number 2, Inflationary. Chad Brown's offspring of Into Mischief makes the debut, cost nearly $500,000. And for third-time starter, number 8, Full Moon Madness. They add blinkers in the third career start for Michelle Nevin. But, I know this is taking place at Aqueduct, but autumn in New York, we get so amped up for the babies at Saratoga, and rightfully so. I don't think people remember that for probably until the middle 60s. The Hopeful was the biggest race at Saratoga, not the Travers. When they made the movie, what was it, Kentucky? The race was the Hopeful Stakes, not the Travers. But I think in the 60s and such, it really switched. But through the last generation, the baby races at Belmont have been very sharp. And I think it's mostly because trainers changed their game.
Oh, they want the later start. Yeah, you get the 1 start as a 2-year-old, you go to the shelf, and you come back as a 3-year-old. But yeah, people may not remember back in the early days, the big purses were the futurity races. Where they had to chunk in the money, and those were the...
I probably have said this before on air. The Arlington, Washington futurity used to be unbelievable purse money, even after when it started to diminish. But they ran a race, they ran whatever, 66, 67, 68, in there, whatever it was. Whatever that purse was of one of those years, that purse stood up for 10 years. It took a firm's Hollywood Gold Cup, I believe, to finally surpass a futurity race that was almost 10 years run earlier for the biggest purse in the United States to run. But you're absolutely right. You had to supplement, you had to pay for the mare.
Yeah.
Before the foal was even dropped. And obviously, if you had one, you just sent the money in case it worked out well. But you're absolutely right. Futurity racing, and that's where it got its name, the future.
Yeah.
So you nominate, I believe, the mare who was in foal, and the purses were unbelievable.
So they'd have money coming in from all over the place,
everywhere.
and then you'd wind up
with 10 horses. The 10 horses.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll move into the pick 6 down at Belmont at the Big A for this afternoon, so stay tuned.
I'm Seth Merrow, and as serious horse players, we know that information is critical when placing a bet. With live streaming of more than 30 tracks, race replays, free past performances, and daily picks from professional handicappers, no one gives you more up-to-the-minute information than Capital OTB. Combine that with the best player awards in New York State, and you have everything a serious horse player needs to be successful.
Win more with Capital OTB.
Winning starts here.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bauer. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish in the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Welcome back to the Handicappers Report on this October 1st. So we're kicking off October in fine fashion, really, with some nice stakes action. We'll hit on some stakes at Belmont at the Big A coming up at Churchill. A couple of stakes in Santa Anita, their opening day, loaded. Oh, and at top of the hour, I will be joined by Joe Christofek from Churchill Downs. We'll cover the Lucas Classic and the other stake at Churchill, the ACAC, and then I have Ella Starr coming on from Equibase, and he's done some of the work looking at some of the stakes out at Santa Anita, so we'll cover some of that action at the top of the hour on Racing Across America. Stay tuned for that. All right, let's jump back in. Race number 6 down in New York. State-bred allowance non-winners are one other than types. It was scheduled for 6 on the turf, but of course our man Mark Hennig, very reliable. He tweeted out just about an hour ago, today in New York, races 2 and 6 at this point are off the turf. Races 8 and 9 at this time still on the turf.
And one of the things they've often said about turf sprints was, holding the field together, because the 14 and 15 are the MTOs. The 13 is an AE. My top pick, I think, is staying. I sometimes think that this was the opportunity that certain trainers were looking for. So I am 6, 9, 10, Bold Journey. Now, maybe perhaps Bill Mott was looking to try a turf sprint finally, but might also be thinking, well, if this comes off the turf, my level of competition will be diminished versus entering a 6-furlong dirt race. Jose Ortiz gets him out, third start off this cycle, raced big, regressed at Saratoga, now hoping to go forward. I think Bold Journey handicapping would be one of the ones to stay in. Number 9, Mr. Chairman. Now, Christophe Clement's runner has only run on turf, but is an offspring of Into Mischief. I know we have numerous on the bottom side, and that's turf, but I would stay and take a chance with this horse. And for third, Courageous Ooh La La, who broke the maiden about a year ago on dirt, 6, 9, 10 in the off-the-turf 6th.
All right. It is not Saratoga. It's Belmont at the Big A, but it's the Woodward.
So we've had the Woodward at Belmont, Saratoga, and Aqueduct the last 10, 12 years.
Grade 1 event, $500,000 up for grabs. 9 furlongs is the trip, and all eyes on Life is Good.
I'm saying last 5 years, it's touched all 3 bases. I'll probably hit up on Twitter, David Aragona. I cannot remember 1 to 9 on the morning line, but there you have it.
He tweeted out when the field was kind of coming together a couple of days ago. He said, "Yeah, I'm going to have to pull out the 1 to 9, I think."
I got to see when the last time, or how about the last time in a grade 1? I mean, my goodness. I was trying to, it went back so far, I was thinking maybe Slew of Gold going, by the time he was in the Jockey Club. I don't remember, he was on such a run. And, people forget, the Breeders' Cup was in its first year. He won 5 of the 6. fall championship races when they were the fall championship races. One was the year before the Breeders' Cup. Wow. 1, 3, 4. I mean, right? It's supposed to be life. I mean, there have been 1 to 9 shots in my life I would take a shot against. This is not one of them today. I've seen this act before. I mean, 9 furlongs. He's 2 turns. We'll see. I seem to have been, we'll see. They said it was hot for the Whitney. Well, it's not going to be hot today down at Aqueduct, so we'll see. But life is good on top. I was 0 for Saratoga with the one-punch exactas with horses such as Nest 2 times. So Thomas Shelby is my one-punch exacta here for David Jacobson, coming off of the impressive Monmouth 2-turn win. And then keep me in mind for Todd Pletcher, the other Todd Pletcher horse. But life is good. 1, 3, 4 in the Woodward.
More stakes action for the 2-year-old fillies, grade 2, couple $100,000. And again, according to Mark Hennig, this stays on the grass at 1.16 miles.
And I remember when the Miss Grillo and the Pilgrim were run at Aqueduct. They would be like the year-end big turf racing when, before turf racing took off, New York was ahead of the curve. I am 261. Free Look takes on Winners for the first time after an impressive score at Saratoga in the second career start. The offspring of Tappet is down inside. The horse to beat here is my second pick, the 6. And one thing I will say about Be Your Best, and whether it's Bauer speed figures, winning lengths, whatever, watching this horse on debut and then in the more recent P.G. Johnson, boy, this is, I think, this is a good one. This horse has a big upside. I don't think you could want a horse to win races any better than she has already. She is clearly the horse to beat. And for third, number 1, Georgie Spirit, Jorge Abreu's runner, takes on Winners for the first time, tries 2 turns for the first time, 261.
Ninth race is the Belmont Turf Sprint, couple $100,000, grade 3, 6 furlongs on the grass.
I don't know if I know you'll be doing OTB Live. I would not want to be a public handicapper day in and day out with a race such as this. This is 236 for me. I mean, what a terrific race in this turf sprint running for big bucks. But Michael Trombetta sends out the runner, Arzak, coming out of the Kentucky Downs race. And one thing about the Kentucky Downs race, for me, Seth, I don't know how you see it. I don't kind of put them in the mix for me because they're so singular. I mean, I like to, I don't want to see you flop on it, but I'd be very forgiving if you flopped on it. But before that at Troy was razor sharp, even though it didn't hit the board. For second, number 3, Nothing Better, comes out of a runner-up in the Red Bank. That was a mile on the turf. And for third, number 5, Voodoo Zip, Christophe Clement's runner, off the board in the recently run Lucky Coin. But 2-3-6 in a great betting race.
I also thought it was a tough race, but I wound up on the 2. But like you, the Kentucky Downs races, it's hard to know what to make of them. But I am very forgiving of a bad effort because I think it's just so quirky. Some horses
move
just,
on, yeah,
just don't take to it. 10th race, the Champagne, grade 1 event, $500,000 up for grabs for the 2-year-olds going the flat mile.
And this is one time in Forset, I'll say it. I don't think, I'll be shocked with the bettors if they make David Aragona right that Gulfport is only 2-1. I have to figure everybody's leaving this ship. But he thinks 2-1 for second choice. But I'm 5-3-4. Blazing Sevens, I hope, is close to 8-1. Brilliant on debut. Regress in the hopeful. I'm throwing that race out. I mean, we had the Quagmire. We had all that. Forget it. Blazing Sevens. I talked about Good Magic earlier. At 8-1, I'm all in on this runner. For second, Verifying. Good on debut at 3-4 at Saratoga. Takes on Winners in the second career start. The offspring of Justify. And another Justify, number 4, Champion's Dream. 1 on debut at Saratoga. The offspring of Justify, as I mentioned. Very intriguing. But Gulfport, to me, Seth, 2-1. I'm not a bookmaker, but I don't think the bettors are going for him either. And that's David's job, by the way.
I don't know. I had the opposite opinion. I thought,
you like him?
I thought the 2-1 I think people may go back though, but I'm not sure. I'm going to be interested to see, because he made verifying the favorite, and I get it, but it's a maiden. You know, the hopeful ran second. Forte may turn out to be a really nice horse. So I'll be interested to see how it does shake out though. The 11th and final at Belmont at the Big A today, 6:17 in the PM. State bred down winner, so 1-6 furlongs.
9-6-3 for me, throwing out the most recent effort for number 9, Liberty Flame. That was on the turf. That was in June. Took Saratoga off. Comes back today for the offspring of Bellamy Road. Number 6, Carbon, gets my next pick. Horse hasn't run since March 20th. 4, Linda Rice, takes on winners today for the first time. And for third, number 5, Can't Hurry Love, Christophe Clement's runner. Broke the maiden finally in the 7th career start in the slop. 9-6-3 in the finale at the Big A.
All right, that takes us to another break. When we come back, we'll shift our attention to Churchill for this Saturday afternoon. Stay tuned.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player? To have a better knowledge of the game? To be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Alongside Seth Merrow, I'm Anthony Mormino, turning our attention to Churchill Downs as they are about to wrap up their September/October meet. Maiden claimers in for 10, going 9 in the opener.
5, 6, 1, and 2 for me. I put Thatch on top. Lately raced a run from Brendan Walsh and just seemed to maybe turn the corner and kind of figure it out last time when dropped down to this level. So I think he's found the comfort zone class-wise, and given what we saw last time as compared to this field. And again, being lightly raced, there may even be a little bit of upside potential. So we'll put Thatch on top. Command Central in the second spot. There's some races underneath that are okay. You know, we're down at this level where they tend to be a little bit inconsistent, but a little turf to dirt move, a little half step down the claiming ladder, move over from Ellis Park. I think this horse can be a player in with this bunch. And Hey Boss, most of the races, either synthetic or turf, tried a similar race to this last time when moved to the dirt and moved to this level. Didn't run that great, but again, it's another one of those where I think what this horse typically runs matches up okay with this relatively weak group. I have it 5, 6, 1, and 2.
Second half of the early double, 3 rolls and up. Fillies and Mares, entry level allowance, 5.5 on the dirt.
1, 6, 2, and 3. Shania on top. Couple of decent races over at Colonial most recently. A third, 2 back, a second last time. The number improved incrementally as it has been doing in the 3 starts since the return from a little early season break. So just seems primed to me to run well this afternoon. Minute Waltz goes out for Phil Bauer. Not knocking it out of the park quite as proficiently down here at Churchill as we saw earlier this summer, but overall this horse does well at Churchill. Comes in from a 6th place finish up at Saratoga, and I think the return to Churchill is going to be beneficial. And then Shell Shock hasn't been seen since the end of July, but when this horse was last seen, was running well. If that form holds up, should be a player. And the workouts are okay. They aren't jumping off the page, but I think it indicates the horse can come back in some decent form. So in the second, we'll go 1, 6, 2, and 3.
On to the third, we have 2-year-old fillies, maiden claimers in for 30, racing 6.5.
6, 4, 3, and 5. I'm going to give Miss Haley kind of a modest nod in a weak field of 2-year-old maiden claimers. These are the kind of races where you like to look for a little breeding or connections or whatnot. More on the 2-year-old side than the maiden specials, but you can find something sometimes in maiden claimers. This field, maybe not so much. There was a sibling called Rational Choice that raced for Chad and Klarovich that was second in debut, and then in the 5th and 6th career starts strung a couple of wins together. So there was maybe a little win early here. The workouts seem interesting. Candy Ride, a good sire of firsters. Brad Cox can have them ready. So get 5-1. I'll go with Miss Haley, but as I say, tepidly. Tommy Amos has Cupid's Payday, by Munnings. Amos does okay with first-time starters. So again, a little bit of breeding, a little of the nature and nurture at work. And Tenacious Lady has a start under the belt, going maiden special weight to maiden claiming. The trainer is pretty good. So with a little bit of experience and education, and again, the trainer doing okay, a little switch up in the surface may help wake things up as well. I'll tilt in that direction. For me, 6, 4, 3, and 5.
On to the 4th, we have claimers in for 20,000, racing the dirt one-turn mile.
I went 4, 5, 6, and 2. I put Runaway Magic on top. Couple of starts this year. The start in April at Keeneland wasn't much. And then the follow-up was a 3rd place finish. But this is the kind I talk about quite a bit. Real head scratcher, because the talent that this horse has shown matches nicely with this group, and maybe for me gives the horse a little bit of an edge. But that race in June, the last race we're looking at, it was in June, so there's a long layoff, and it was a voided claim. And again, I'd love to have some kind of information on why these claims were voided. If it's paperwork, it's totally different than if it's a physical issue. And if it was a physical issue, now you're wondering, oh, spent the summer on the sidelines, and what do we do? The workouts are okay, though. That September 8th workout, I think, seems to indicate the horse perhaps on his toes. So I went in this direction, but again, it's a little bit of a roll of the dice given the scenario. Undecoded in the 2nd spot, comes in from a couple of July tries at Ellis. Class-wise, I think it's going to class up pretty nicely with this bunch. When this horse is dropped in for these 20 tags, going back to the maiden breaker and the follow-up at the N2L condition, both of the 20 tag, the horse ran very well. I think is going to benefit from the class move. Again, today, and Arthurian in the 3rd spot, lightly raced, relatively lightly raced, steps out of Allowance Company over at Indiana. Before that, a couple of claiming races up at Saratoga, and the most recent one was pretty good, and I think probably closer to what we'll get to today as opposed to that allowance race last time. So the 4th, 4, 5, 6, and 2.
There's a picture floating around Twitter, about 85 years old, the picture. I'm starting to make the conjecture that the reason it's not a straight line mile, there's a house. And I did rather well in geometry. I'm thinking that house is why they had to turn it to the side. But you'll probably come across it. It's a very interesting picture. I go, it's the house. The house is why they can't run a straight line. They haven't been running a straight line in 85 years. On to the 5th, 2-year-olds, maiden special weights. Dirt, mile and a 16th.
I wonder if it's somebody, I am not selling.
Right. But then you figure once they did, because obviously the house isn't there any longer, once the house is gone, you make it the straight line. But there's a house, and I'm telling you, that's why it's that. I'd bet $5 on it.
Well, yeah, that seems logical. 8, 10, 7, and 5 for me in the 5th. Pyrenees on top, comes over from a debut effort at Ellis that admittedly wasn't much. But I say it occasionally that when you get these, win early sires, a little win early breeding, and this horse has some very nice win early breeding, and they don't get it done in the debut or maybe the 2nd or 3rd start, and they switch things up. Well, we're going from 6 furlongs to a mile and a 16. I mentioned Into Mischief on top. That's clearly win early. But the dam produced some siblings. Virginia Key and Grace Adler both won their debuts. Another sibling called Mr. Coker that was 2nd in debut and then subsequently won. So I think there's some nice win early here that this horse stands a chance to live up to at a decent 8-1 price. And given what we saw in the debut, I would expect we will hold with some nice value. So I'm going to play around in this Churchill fifth. It also kicks off a pick 4, mid-card pick 4. So Pyrenees intriguing to me in the fifth. Tappett's Conquest in the second spot. Tried 7 furlongs up at Saratoga in debut and just missed. A sibling called Queen Bess won its second start, third in debut, and then won the second start. So this one may live up to the older sibling and maybe becomes the one to beat from Brad Cox. Third spot, I will use Magnificent Mile. Attracted a lot of attention, $800,000 up at Saratoga last year, the Fasig-Tipton sale. There's a sibling called Brill that won its career debut. This one didn't live up to that as the beaten favorite at Ellis back at the end of August. But again, attracted a lot of money, ran very decently in debut, winning sibling in debut. So there's some interest there as well. Dennington is a gun runner offspring. Doesn't have any siblings to look at, but the Kenny McPeak horse could be interesting in the third career start, stretching out to this mile and a 16th in the fifth at Churchill. 8, 10, 7, and 5.
On to the 6, optional in for 100, 3X, going 6.
4, 2, 6, and 7. Obesos on top. Hasn't been seen since April at Keeneland. That's the concern. But this horse has a number of stakes races underneath. They tried the Kentucky Derby last year, you might remember. The Greg Foley runner, 3 wins in 10 starts, and has clearly shown flashes of talent. This may be a nice spot to return from that April layoff. So, you know, a more proper non-winners of 3 level as compared to the stakes tries in the last couple. Surveillance in the second spot goes out for Keith Desormo off a decent try in a similar event last time. Ran third, but ran very well. Cuts back from 7 to 6 today, which could be beneficial. And Kavad, winner last time in an optional N2X. So we're kind of moving up condition-wise, but I think the Chris Hartman runner, who also has some stakes tries underneath, you know, they obviously had some ambition for this horse. And again, like the top pick, I think nicely fits with this non-winners of 3 group, particularly off that win last time. Yeah, sometimes you have to work when you move to the next condition, but I think this horse has been facing the kind that indicate this move is not going to be a huge obstacle. In the 6th, 4, 2, 6, and 7.
On to the 7th, maiden special weights, going a mile 16, 2-year-olds.
8, 9, 6, and 3. I thought the 1 was a little bit intriguing as well. You know, 7 to 2. I'm not saying anything too surprising, but the Ken McPeak runner, if somebody has Frank's honor, I wouldn't argue against that one. But I put Desert Wolf on top. Pletcher runner that, okay debut. It looked like a foundation to maybe move forward from the debut up at Saratoga. 5th place finish in a field of 9. Had a little trouble in there. We'll look for improvement today. 10 days later, sprinted on the dirt at Ellis, then tried the turf at Kentucky Downs. Both were okay, but now interesting in the 3rd start, stretching out on the dirt. This horse could be interesting, maybe at a little bit of a price on the scenario. And then Wrecker Point. This one had a sibling called Create a Story that was 10th in debut, won the 2nd career start. This one, on the other hand, has had a couple of runs already, but by Cantheros, there's some win early breeding there that says this horse may will likely break through sooner rather than later. Similar scenario maybe to Eldest Son, the number 3 horse at 10 to 1 for Brendan Walsh by Into Mischief, with a win early sibling. Went off at 2 to 1 in the debut. You know, mid-pack over at Indiana. But I think Eldest Son, the number 3 horse, is also intriguing at a 10 to 1 morning line. 7th at Churchill, 8, 9, 6, and 3.
On to the 8th race, mile and 8th on the dirt, entry-level allowance.
8, 7, 4, and 5. And again, I wouldn't argue the 1 here. The 1 is also one of those, 3 to 1. Master the obvious kind of, but I just, again, I'm not taking a big stand against that one. I just thought others were more intriguing. Open road for Brad Cox. Won the career debut at Churchill back in May. Followed it up in a non-winners of 1. Didn't show much there. Then popped over to Ellis and ran well in an allowance event. Lightly raced. Has had a little time off the end of the summer. Could come back as an improved 3-year-old here off of that little bit of a layoff. Strong quality goes out for Marquez. You have a good second place finish in an allowance event up at Saratoga. Like the top pick, lightly raced. May still be some blue sky ahead for this one. And what we've seen so far has been pretty good for the Marquez runner. And then in the third spot, the Prince's Spur. Debuted in an off-the-turfer and ran an okay third. Then was on the turf up at Saratoga, ran fourth. Then in an off-the-turfer at Saratoga, won to break the maiden and was claimed out of that race for 75. First two starts made special, dropped in for the tag last time, and picked up by this group from Todd Pletcher. So this is intriguing. This is a horse that I think has some talent. They dangled it out there for the 75. They lost. Now this new group comes back in the allowance non-winners of 1. But at 10-1, I would certainly not count this one out. And in fact, I'm going to be surprised if we get the 10-1. I think this horse will be more attractive to the betting public than that. In the 8th at Churchill, 8, 7, 4, and 5.
And in the 9th, I think this used to be the opening day feature of the November meet. And it was run like at 7.5 on dirt. Very peculiar. But the ACAC, one-turn dirt mile.
I'm going to take a little shot against Speaker's Corner, and I'll be interested to see where the actual odds hold up. Because off the last few, I won't be surprised if I'm not alone. But I thought Untreated, being 3 for 3 at the mile trip, was very intriguing. Comes out of a 4th in the Jockey Club behind Olympiad and American Revolution and First Captain up at Saratoga. But a close-up 3rd in the Suburban before that behind Dynamic One and First Captain. And again, those are 1.25 miles. Now cuts back to the mile where this horse is undefeated in 3 starts. So I'll take a little roll of the dice. Speaker's Corner, clearly the one to beat. But again, disappointed out in Southern California, fading to 4th in the Pat O'Brien, wound up 2nd, however, in the Nehrude. And I say 2nd, however, because it was behind Life is Good. Ran 3rd before that behind Flightline. So has been, you look at the company lines and maybe Speaker's Corner will just run away with this group. But again, the Pat O'Brien left me a little suspicious. Twilight Blue in the 3rd spot, up a nice win in a stakes race here in the middle of August. Could be interesting at a price to play around with as well. But the ACAC, the 9th, 2, 1, 10, and 3.
On to the 10th, the Lucas Classic.
I have a 5, 3, 2, and 4. I put Hot Rod Charlie on top. I looked at Art Collector and found that one interesting. Happy Saver, I think, is talented. And I think both of these guys, Hot Rod Charlie and Happy Saver, are electing to try here and stay away from Life is Good, who they finished behind last time in the Whitney. Probably a smart move. But I thought that Salvatore Mile, that was a ding-dong battle with Mind Control. The 3rd place finish in the Whitney, I thought, was a decent effort. The horse, Hot Rod Charlie, seems to be working decently. I'm going to tilt in this direction in a competitive race. But Happy Saver coming out of nice performances in the Met Mile and the Whitney, finishing behind Flightline and Life is Good, I think is going to be very interesting for Todd Pletcher. Art Collector, going to be interested to see what he does as well. He looked good in the Aladar up at Saratoga, but, was beating Masquerade and Chess Chief, so I'm not sure the competition was stellar there. Won the Charlestown Classic. It's always hard to know what to make of that because it's such a quirky configuration. But Art Collector is clearly in very good form and likely to be solid in here as well. But for me, I wound up in the Lucas Classic 5, 3, 2, and 4.
And the 11th finale will be Fillies and Mares, maiden special weights, racing 6.
Race 11, I have it 8, 7, 12, and 2. Amaryllis Kiss on top. Tried turf last time. I like the turf to dirt move. The dirt race just prior was very good. Scarlet Stripe in the 2nd spot off a good try for Brendan Walsh last time. Son of Gun Runner may benefit from that and live up to that win early sire breeding. And Mark's Woman, first time starter that is working very well for Greg Foley. The 11th and final at Churchill, 8, 7, 12, and 2.
And that wraps up our look at Aqueduct and Churchill Downs. Remember, Santa Anita is underway. You said, what, mandatory payout at Gulfstream Park today?
Yeah, they're expecting 1.5, I think, million maybe in the pool.
There you go. Always interesting day when they have the mandatory payouts. Remember, at Santa Anita, the lucky jackpot was hit on day one to the tune of about $70,000. I think north of $70,000. And obviously, big prep racing, the prestigious Champagne, the Woodward today, the Lucas Classic with the Derby winner in it. So a terrific 1st of October. Up next, what do you have for the good people in racing across America?
Joe Christopher, Churchill Downs. We'll take a look at some of those stakes. Ellis Starr has looked at some of the action out at Santa Anita. We'll talk to him as well, and more coming up top of the hour.
And just to show the West Coast bias on my part is alive and well. Autumn is, well, it used to be the Oak Tree meet when I was in, is a great time if you're ever going to visit Santa Anita. Usually, I try and tell people that I think for many people, September and October is some of the best weather in either San Francisco or Los Angeles. The wind blows out, the smog is much less pertinent. There's a little smog in San Francisco the other day, but Santa Anita in the autumn is beautiful. San Gabriel Mountains feel like they're in your lap. I mean, sometimes they've had some warm spells, but autumn is beautiful in Los Angeles, and that Oak Tree meet, or now just the Santa Anita meet, is really a great time to go. And I've told people, I said, I mean, Del Mar is nice, but they really should never host the Breeders' Cup. The California section should always be Santa Anita. I mean, you can only really have comfortably about 30,000 at Del Mar. You can have 60,000 comfortably at Santa Anita. I mean, Santa Anita is a big facility like Belmont.
I would say over the years, if there's a consensus among people, Santa Anita is the Breeders' Cup spot.
Yes. I can't say that because people say, but it is. And I've had arguments at Santa Anita. I've said, you know, and I've told people for years, what do you mean? Belmont's the least expensive, the easiest, most convenient one for me to have it. I never wanted at Belmont. It's supposed to be, you know, golf shirts and warm weather and a fun time to attract people to go to it. So I would, you know, and I don't think it should be a permanent host, but I have said before, I think Santa Anita should host it like 6 out of the 10 years. And then let, you know, Kentucky has to have it. They're the breeders. And then I've always said that there should be one that just, I've always said that Laurel should have one because they brought the International to the United States, and that was the first international racing. But that's for another time. But a great day of racing. This weekend, next weekend should wrap up the major preps for the horses. We'll see. I'm very intrigued on the Champagne. I'm intrigued on how they bet it. Yeah. And how it comes out of it. Because for the longest time, and the streak was snapped, of all the races in the Breeders' Cup, the prep race that had the longest run of a participant exiting it was the Champagne. There was a Champagne runner in the Breeders' Cup for longer than any other race. I think that streak has been snapped. And if you go back a long time ago, first year of the Breeders' Cup, I think the Champagne was run at Aqueduct that year. One of the most forgotten Champagnes, but it's going to be run today, and I'm very intrigued today. He stays, I go. Enjoy the great racing, ladies and gentlemen.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track.